So we have Dr. Rodel Lasco. So I had the privilege of actually visiting him at his home with his wife, Heidi, in Manila. And I'm so glad that he can share with us. And so if you love data, graphs, all that kind of stuff, it's coming up. It's going to be on there. And so I'm just going to give a really quick intro on Dr. Rodel so you get a sense of who he is, what his background is. So Dr. Rodel Lasco is a scientist and pastor who has more than 40 years of experience in natural resources and environmental research, conservation, education, and development. He has over 100 technical publications in national and international journals dealing with the various aspects of natural resources conservation and environment management. In the Philippines, he pioneered research on climate change adaptation in the natural resource sector and the role of tropical forests in climate change. He is an author of several reports of the IPCC, I had to Google what that meant, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and the 2000 co-winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. I've never met someone with a Nobel Peace Prize, and we have him in the room, which is mind-blowing. And he's so humble about it too, so I'm pretty sure he's not really liking this section where I'm like reading and talking him up. He's the executive director of the Oscar M. Lopez Center, a private foundation whose mission is to promote action research on climate adaptation and disaster risk reduction. He's also a member of the National Academy of Science and Technology in the Philippines. So parallel to his scientific career, he has been ministering at the Trinity Bible Church in the Philippines since 1982. Dr. Rodel, please come up.
Thank you.
5 minutes
left. 5 minutes left. Okay. I just got here and 5 minutes left. 2023. 2023. What happened that year, last year? Last year was the hottest year on record ever. The hottest year on record ever. Think about it. Now we just heard from Hillary, the mess. He quoted, I think, Christopher Wright, talking about the mess. And so we will jump into that mess right now by looking at two global assessments conducted by the world's top scientists. The first one is an assessment on biodiversity and ecosystem services, and the second one is our assessment, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Next slide, please. So I won't go into too much detail here, but on the middle part, you will see the drivers. What drives this change, this ecosystem change? Land use and land use and sea use change, direct exploitation, climate change. That's in the middle part. And then on the right side of that panel, you will see the indirect drivers, the more, shall we say, ultimate drivers. The middle part are the more proximate drivers. And of course, your country, Singapore, perhaps illustrate this more than any other. I'm sure 50 years ago, this land was probably mangroves mostly, but now you have totally transformed it just in the last few decades. And so what I'm going to do now is to sort of enlarge the right column there so we will see more what's happening to our natural ecosystems. And so at the top there, you'll see that almost half, according to this panel, the Intergovernmental Panel on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, more than almost half of all natural ecosystems have now been degraded, or they have declined. Almost half, imagine that. On the middle part there, you see that in terms of the species, a quarter of all species, plants and animals, are now in danger of being extinct. And when we say extinct, it means gone, totally gone. And finally, in terms of biotic integrity, the abundance of naturally present species, again, about a quarter of them have already declined. Next slide, please. And two more here. Mammal biomass, the biomass of mammals or animals, 82%, 4 out of 5. Now, in terms of the weight of these animals, essentially, of course, reflecting how fast we are losing these animals. And finally, in terms of indigenous peoples, about 7 out of 10 of the indicators they identify as essential for them in terms of their ecosystem showing ongoing deterioration. And so this is massive. This is the fastest ever in human history that we are experiencing this kind of really radical change in our planet. Next, please. And here, again, part of that assessment, this time showing which groups of species are in danger of being extinct. And we said about 25% globally, but as you can see from here, some groups like the cycads are actually about 60% already in danger of being extinct. Many of you are bird lovers, I suppose, birds right up there, close to, I think, about 20% already in danger. Now, this is not computer projections. These are not simulations. These are actual results of scientific assessments around the world showing how fast we are losing our plants and animals. Next, please. And if you look at our part of the world, and later we will have speakers from Singapore telling your stories as well, but just focusing on Southeast Asia. And again, I'm so proud here to be here standing before you as a Southeast Asian myself, showing that a lot of the hotspots in the world are in our part of the world. No? These hotspots are areas that are highly threatened. Plants and animals could be extinct. And that region of the world, our part of the world, as you can, I hope you can see it, is part of that hotspot, the red colored lines there. Next, please. Okay, and then as we zoom in, again, in our part of the world, this is for the whole of Asia, all the regions in Asia, but if you click one more, you will see there Southeast Asia showing about 32%, about a third, 1 out of 3 species in our part of the world is in danger of becoming extinct. Think about it. And of course, we saw the frog example earlier here, also in Singapore. And so this is really a mess. No? We are seeing how, and as we have heard, Hillary laying the foundation there of the spiritual, biblical assessment of why we are here. And I think that's so crucial because many organizations, many non-government organizations talk about the things we're talking about, but their analysis, I would say, is superficial in comparison to us believers who can really see the real cause, the ultimate cause of why we have all of these decline and deterioration of our ecosystems. Next, please. And my country is an example here, the Philippines, and probably you can identify as well. In the last 100 years, we lost 50% of our forest. The upper 70% there, that was in 1900s. More than 100 years ago, we still had 70% of the total land area, 30 million hectares. 27 million hectares of our country are all covered with tropical, very rich, biodiversity-rich tropical rainforest. But now, as you can see here, we are down to about, well, that's 18, but actually the government says about 20 plus. There's been a regreening program over the last couple of decades. But still, you see the dramatic decline. We lost 50%, 15 million hectares of very rich tropical rainforest, one of the richest ecosystems in the world in the last 100 years. Next, please. And so part of the story, that's the first part, biodiversity. And if I may plug Jeremy and Dave, they'll be talking more about this in the afternoon session. Do I still have 5 minutes? When? Okay. Not yet? Okay, not yet. Okay. Okay, I'm so conscious of time. But, so I was born in the 1960, exactly 1960. So I'm that old person there, no? Born 1950. And the temperature, this is now from the IPCC. Okay, I'm sort of shifting. Remember, all of these reports are literally thousands of pages, and all of them can be downloaded free from the internet, right? So I'm just summarizing them. You can also have this PowerPoint. The organizers have a copy if you want a copy. Okay, so I'm condensing in 20 minutes, literally thousands of pages and years of reporting by the world's top scientists, okay? So pardon me if I'm too excited here. But, okay, so I was born 1960, and that's my sort of temperature. I'm here right now, 63 years old. Now, my daughter was born 1980, exactly that year, 1980. And so my daughter has experienced, and will experience, you will notice here, a much warmer, that's a message of the IPCC here, a much warmer world. Now is 2024. And my grandchildren, we have two grandkids, exactly born 2020, and this is the kind of temperature, maybe 2, 3, 4 degrees warmer than today. And some people will say, well, I woke up at 24 degrees, I checked my cell phone, and at 2 o'clock it will be 32 degrees here in Singapore. It's 24 degrees, 32 degrees, 8 degrees of change between 6 o'clock in the morning and now 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Why are we worried about 1 degree, 2 degrees? What's the concern? Now, since we have experienced 8 degrees in just a few hours, we're still alive, right? But the better analogy is not that. The better analogy is actually the body temperature. Our body, 37 degrees centigrade. You warm our body by just 1 degree. What happens at 38? You feel feverish, right? At 39, you're probably in bed. At 40, will probably be comatose. And that is the better analogy because that temperature is the global average temperature. And now linking the two stories together, climate change, biodiversity, here it is from the IPCC. So why are we concerned from the perspective of biodiversity conservation and climate change or global warming? It is because global warming will add another layer of stress to what is already really stressful in terms of land use change, sea use change, in terms of pollution, conversion, and now another layer is climate change. And here in this left panel, you see 1.5 degrees warmer than, well, compared to the industrial revolution time, 1850s, this is 3 degrees warmer than that baseline. And the color represents, the redder the color, the higher the percentage of species at risk of being extinct. And so, our part of the world again, 1.5 rise in temperature, about 25% of species, a quarter, will be at risk at 1.5. And we are now nearly 1.5. That is why 2023 was so disturbing, we actually breached 1.5. Okay? Although climate change is long-term, right? It's not just 1 year, it's 30-year average. And this is 3 degrees. If we don't do anything about it, we are, the trajectory is towards 3, 4, even 5 degrees. And so in our part of the world, maybe more than 25 to 50% of all species will be at risk with warming planet. Next, please. And so we know nature's services. Why are we concerned about biodiversity, about ecosystems, again, from the scientific point of view? And that is because these ecosystems provide a host of services, from pollination, coastal protection, like in Singapore, one of your concerns is sea level rise. So coastal protection, tourism, of course, food as well. I know you have a target, 30% by, I think, 2030, self-sufficiency and so on, because I'm also one of the reviewers of one of your government's call for research proposals. So I have seen those proposals and have reviewed them together with another international panel, water filtration and so on. So all of these services do come from ecosystems. Next, please. And I won't go into details. I know it's too small, but I just want to say it's not all negative. No, I don't want to leave the impression that we cannot do anything about it. And hopefully the session this afternoon will, elaborate more on this. But the IPCC report that we wrote also includes a lot of adaptation, what we can do to address the impacts of climate change. So it's not all negative. There are actually real solutions out there. 5 minutes, okay. And we're moving on. So finally, just my last word, just hopefully linking this with Hillary. Next, please. And Hillary cited Genesis 2:15, very important, no? In terms of what we can do as a Christian. Because as you know, I'm also a pastor for more than 40 years now. And just realizing that the Lord has given us this creation mandate, even before the fall. even before sin entered the picture in Genesis 3, we already have this mandate. The Lord God took the man, Adam, and put him in the Garden of Eden to work. That's the words highlighted by Hillary, to work and keep it. To keep it, to protect it, to steward it, even serve it in some way. That is our mandate, not to destroy the earth. And that is so important because there is a narrative out there that Christians are responsible for destroying ecosystems. Maybe you've heard it, right? Because Genesis 1 said, you shall have dominion. And therefore, people are saying, that's why we, get all of this mess that we are in right now. But we have to push back very strongly. That is not the message of the Bible, very clearly articulated by Hillary. Next, please. We are stewards of the earth and its resources. And finally, my last slide, just looking at sort of practical things we can do. It's not just up there in the air. It's not just scientists talking about all of this. Next, please. We can act locally. And of course, your aspiration to have an Rocha, Singapore is definitely a step in the right direction. Again, even more practically for you, students, young people, housewife, engineer, business people, a lot of these things are related to just not being wasteful, because a lot of these things are sort of connected. We call that a footprint, carbon footprint, water footprint, waste, and so on. So paper comes from trees sequester carbon, they store carbon, they protect you. You know that because I love Singapore, like a garden city, one of my favorite cities, definitely. And water, very limited. You pump water, you distribute water, you use fossil fuels to distribute those water. You process it here in Singapore. You even do salination, food production. They exhaust the fertility of the soil, nitrous oxide from nitrogen fertilizer, paddy fields for rice, methane emission. All of these are interconnected. Land conversion, biodiversity loss, Indonesia, oil palm, and so on. All of these stories are connected. Power, of course, fossil fuels, global warming. Next, please. Be aware of the issues. And again, this forum is such, I think, a giant step in that direction. Just you being here, spending your Saturday here, I hope you're more aware and you will learn something. And finally, my last word, participate. Participate. Do something about it. Spread the word. Be part of Rocha, Singapore, if hopefully that happens soon. And with that, I thank you so much for this opportunity to speak to you all. Thank you.